It's that time of year when our scorching desert heat clashes with an influx of humidity.
Well, you can throw out the phrase it's a dry heat because this surge in tropical moisture, along with our daytime triple-digit temperatures, combine to form towering thunderstorms that can really pack a punch.
It's the Arizona monsoon, and our summer thunderstorm season has it all. Towering walls of dust, dangerous to drivers and flyers alike, and anyone caught outside.
Fast-moving, intense rainstorms that can flood our streets, freeways, and even our desert washes in an instant.
Damaging wind gusts that can knock over trees, buildings, and power lines, and even capsize boats.
And of course, dangerous lightning that can cause fires and knock out power for thousands.
We are your first alert weather team, and we have you covered.
We'll show you what to look out for and how to prepare to keep you and your family safe.
When we know, you'll know. This is First Alert Weather, Monsoon 2025. It's not your grandfather's monsoon anymore. The Arizona summer thunderstorm season is changing. One of the big reasons is the atmosphere is getting much hotter, especially over Metro Phoenix. It's called the urban heat island effect.
If you do add the city in, which we have a very large metropolitan area, you do start including the urban heat island effect. And this is important. This is important because you're changing the structure, the temperature structure over the environment. And it's not as favorable to create clouds because even though you can hold more water vapor capacity with higher temperatures, it's harder to condense.
We've all watched thunderstorms form along outflow boundaries coming from other storms, but the heat island effect works against all of that.
However, when it intersects the city, where you get that urban heat island effect, again, it's more difficult to condense in the clouds. However, when that outflow passes the city, then you're all of a sudden in a more favorable environment. So like magic, it seems like these storms are firing up outside the city.
And that's why we're seeing less summer storms around Metro Phoenix.
Less rain days than what we typically see. So the normal monsoon for the last umpteen decades in the valley, you're thinking 10 to 14 active days wherever you might be in the valley. So what we're seeing in the rainfall data is that that number has been slowly coming down by a day or two over the last few decades.
So less total thunderstorms, but the potential for more severe storms.
What we're seeing though is the types of events tend to be a little more volatile in nature, or there's more variability. Again, longer days with less rain, and then we get an event and we just see a very large amount of rainfall.
And with the variability of the monsoon, it's really hard to tell what's going on if you just pick one location.
That is so true, and I think last season was a really good example of that, where much of the valley itself was spared a lot of those rain day opportunities, a lot of those thunderstorm days. And so there's probably a perception with many like, oh, it was a monsoon. But sure enough, here at Flood Control District, when you look at the county and 10,000 square miles, we had flash flooding events observed by our network.
Over the past 50 years, the amount of monsoon rain around the valley has dropped about 10 to 20%. That's a trend that probably isn't going to change much. This is the typical position of the monsoon high for most of the past. It gives the area a lot of room to pull moisture in from the Gulf of Mexico and from the Sea of Cortez. That's how we get most of our moisture. But the last couple of years especially, this ridge of high pressure has been stronger and it's been intensified and has moved right on top of Arizona. As a result, most of the moisture gets shunted away from the state and we get some really hot weather. Erin Ann Saffel is the Arizona state climatologist, and she agrees the North American monsoon is changing, but just how fast and how much, well, that's the big question.
What we're seeing, when we're looking at these long-term droughts, that does play a role in dropping the number of thunderstorm activity that we can see. So not every time, not all the time, but when we're looking at the last 30 years, our average amount of precipitation long-term for the state is around 12 inches. So the last 30 years, our average is about 11 inches or so.
Saffel, like many who study the monsoon, is cautiously optimistic that this season may be a little bit better than 2024.
What we're seeing is potential for a good monsoon this year. One of those reasons is getting that monsoon ridge building in just the correct place.
It's an active scene of construction and demolition here at this industrial complex in the West Valley. It was 1 year ago this summer when 80-mile-per-hour winds roared through here in one of the worst monsoon storms in recent history.
We begin with first alert weather coverage as a strong monsoon storm hits the valley this evening.
This is not the outcome we wanted.
A 22-year-old warehouse employee was killed when the roof collapsed and walls came crashing down at this building, hit with estimated 80-mile-per-hour winds, one of 20 microbursts to hit the West Valley in about 90 minutes.
Well, this one just hit just right to produce the significant damage across the west side of Phoenix.
National Weather Service meteorologist Tom Frieders says microbursts are fairly common during monsoon season in Arizona.
It can be very difficult because it happens so fast. Sometimes you can go from clear skies to damaging microbursts and winds, within about 15-20 minutes. So it's a matter of really keeping an eye on the radar and seeing the signature that says that air is going to start coming down at a rapid pace.
A microburst happens when there's instability in the atmosphere. Thunderstorms form, rain develops, and cools the air, which then becomes more dense and comes crashing down, picking up speed as it moves through the hot, dry air below. That air fans out when it slams into the ground, with wind speeds sometimes reaching 150 miles per hour. It's no wonder the damage looks like that of a tornado. But there are several ways to identify a microburst.
It does become pretty obvious what type of damage it is once you start looking at patterns. With microburst winds, it slams into the ground and the debris and the damage is all pushed in one direction. A tornado, you're going to get some circulation, obviously, with a tornado, and so it's going to throw debris in multiple directions.
Second, a very distinct radar signature.
We're looking at different levels of the radar imagery, and at the closest one to the surface, you can actually see winds diverge in both directions as the winds slam into the ground, and it just kind of spreads out.
There is no such thing as a microburst warning, but the National Weather Service often issues severe thunderstorm warnings during monsoon season, which include the dangers of a microburst.
It lasted over 6 hours.
One of the most visually compelling parts of the monsoon.
Flowing dust will create hazardous driving conditions.
Dust storms.
And a peak wind gust of 49, pretty impressive.
But they can also be extremely dangerous.
They're going to bring a drop in visibility, and it can be very fast.
Making international headlines, this dust storm in July of 2011 consumed the Phoenix metro area. It was about a mile high, stretching around 100 miles.
This was a dangerous dust storm that came through.
Because dust storms are fairly common in Phoenix, meteorologists and researchers from the Maricopa County Flood Control District, Air Quality Department, National Weather Service, and other entities came up with an idea. The Phoenix dust storm scale.
We have the tornado scale, we have the hurricane scale, and even for volcanoes, right? So why not for dust storms? There's ways to classify different weather hazards. Dust storms are one of those.
Meteorologist John Malloy with the Maricopa County Flood Control District explained how the scale will work.
In this current ranking that we have right now, it's 1 through 6.
Malloy says the 2011 dust storm would be ranked a Category 6, the highest on the scale, because of the severity of the impact on air quality. One classified as Category 1 was back in July of 2012. The ranking takes into consideration duration of the dust storm, peak wind gusts, and air quality impact.
On the Phoenix dust scale, the primary thing determining whether it's a Category 1 through 6 is actually the air quality.
Malloy says unlike the hurricane scale, which predicts and determines the category of a storm before the weather event happens, this dust storm scale is not a forecast tool. Rather, they will assess after a dust storm and learn from it.
To actually get the public and everyone, media, everyone on the same page on what that dust storm was. It just brings awareness to the type of impacts that you might be experiencing during a monsoon day when a dust storm does roll in.
There's plenty of evidence over the decades these filthy monsters of the monsoon can be deadly for drivers. But now, a new study confirms what we've always feared. Being caught outside in one can be extremely hazardous to your health.
We're trying to figure out, on the days of the dust storm or immediately after the dust storm, do we see increased risk of, emergency visits for things like asthma or motor vehicle accidents? congestive heart failure, and for pneumonia.
That's Dr. James Crooks, who led groundbreaking research that studied over 30,000 ER visits over the past 2 decades following dust storms in California, Utah, and right here in Arizona. The study found an expected double-digit percentage jump in car accidents, but it also shows tangible evidence these walls of dust can cause major lung issues, even heart failure, to those at-risk patients.
We just came from a really dry winter, unfortunately, and so that means that the soils are dried out, and so it's a little bit easier to get that dust to move and become part of dust storms when we get the activity in the atmosphere.
Arizona State climatologist Erin Ann Sappel says it won't take much for those dust walls to roll up from the south this season. I mean, check it out. It is super dry out here.
We'll just have to pay attention, make sure everyone's aware of what's going on.
Dr. Crooks wants state health and transportation leaders to pay attention to his study's numbers as well as parents.
The best thing you can do is stay indoors. If you're driving, pull over somewhere safe where no one's going to hit you and you're not going to hit anyone, and just wait it out. You know, these things usually blow over in, an hour-ish, and it's much safer to just avoid being outside in them if you can.
A monsoon storm can interrupt your outdoor activities in a flash. But I'm not talking about flash flooding, I'm talking about lightning. That story coming up.
And are we in for another impressive monsoon or another dud? That answer in our first alert monsoon forecast. But first, a monsoon fast fact. The average monsoon storm lasts only 30 minutes. The storm of the century produced 3.29 inches of rain in Phoenix on September 8th, 2014.
You're watching an Arizona's Family Special, First Alert Weather, Monsoon 2025. Watching an Arizona's Family Special, First Alert Weather, Monsoon 2025.
Did you know an average monsoon storm produces 275 million gallons of rain, enough to fill 416 Olympic-sized pools? The Havasupai Falls Trail is one of the most famous trails where hikers come from around the world to see. It's a 10-mile out and back trail in the Grand Canyon where you can see some of the most beautiful waterfalls. The hike is challenging and it requires a permit that some people wait years to get from the Havasupai Indian Reservation. But last summer, on August 22nd, a flash flood ripped through the canyon, changing the falls from a beautiful blue oasis to a dangerous, raging brown river. A couple from Ohio spent their 15th anniversary, and the flood trapped them on a ledge just above the falls that afternoon.
We were just waiting. We just hoped that someone would come for us.
24 hours later, Governor Hobbs called in the National Guard and sent a Black Hawk helicopter to rescue over 100 hikers stuck on the trail.
It was we need to get out of here now.
The problem with the hike during the monsoon is getting weather alert to hikers. Brian Klimowski from the National Weather Service said they had been monitoring storms in that area all day.
We had multiple thunderstorms across the area, multiple warnings issued both Wednesday and again on Thursday.
Sadly, one hiker was swept away from the raging waters and did not survive. But with the incredible work from the National Guard, over 100 hikers were rescued and flown to higher ground. If you hike in a remote area like the Havasupai Falls, Brian has good advice.
As you hike in an area, as you explore, understand where your safe places are. If you're hiking down a canyon, just keep in the back of your mind, okay, if a flash flood comes, where can I escape quickly?
Last year, hurricanes, tornadoes, and floods killed more than 500 people in this country. In the Valley of the Sun, our punishing heat killed more than all of those disasters combined.
We have, unfortunately, many dozens of very sad stories that fit that mold every single summer.
A doctor on a hike with friends in the heat in 2022 dies of heat stroke.
They ran out of water, they lost cell service, and they got lost.
A 9-year-old boy dies on South Mountain after hiking in the heat with his family. Captain Rob McDade with Phoenix Fire says the heat ravages the body and is unforgiving for even the healthiest of people. He remembers a recent call for a hiker in distress this year before the 110-degree heat had even set in.
When we got to them, they were already in heat stroke, foaming at the mouth, crawling on all fours. We rescued them. We delivered them to the hospital with an internal core temperature of 109. That's deadly. You can't survive that.
Last year, which actually saw a decrease in Maricopa County heat deaths, still claimed the lives of more than 600 people.
Is it possible to overstate the heat impact in this city in the summer?
I don't think it is. If we were to strip away the streets, the beautiful yards, the homes, this is the middle of the Sonoran Desert.
And our desert doesn't care how long you've lived here or how many times you've hiked in the heat. And it's not just people hiking. Each year, Phoenix Fire responds to calls of elderly people in trouble after their AC failed or wasn't working properly. McDade says we need to check on each other, paying close attention to a parent or a grandparent who suffers from dementia or Alzheimer's.
That person, let's say in February in Phoenix, gets lost, misplaced, they find themselves at the library, they can't identify who they are, they're wandering in their neighborhood. We've got time on our hands to maybe somebody finds them, they can get that help.
So how do you stay safe from the heat if you have to be outside? Well, it's not wearing something like this. Your best bet is to avoid the peak heat of the day and make sure you're wearing lightly colored, loose-fitting clothing. We're talking long sleeves and, of course, a big, wide-brimmed hat. Make sure you're hydrating and always remember, our heat can be deadly.
The monsoon brings in all kinds of hazards like flash flooding and microbursts. Lightning is also a danger, and understanding the risks can help you stay safe the next time thunder roars. The sights and sounds of the monsoon. Tom Frieders from the National Weather Service says that, on average, Arizona gets an estimated 600,000 lightning strikes per year, but 500,000 of those are during the monsoon from late June through September.
Most of our activity is during the monsoon season. Now we will see some outlier thunderstorm activity during the winter months, during some strong winter storms that push a front through the area, but the majority is through the monsoon season.
Lightning can strike anywhere, but
typically the higher frequency is up in higher elevations, like along the rim and into southeast Arizona.
The United States can average up to 40 to 50 lightning fatalities per year, and Arizona is not immune from the fatalities or injuries. During last year's monsoon, 2 women were hospitalized after being struck by lightning in Page near the Horseshoe Bend overlook. During the monsoon, it's often activities like hiking, fishing, and boating that can get people in trouble. And when it comes to boating, Olivia Holderness from Maricopa County Parks and Recreation says not rushing back to the boat ramp is important if you are stuck on the water when lightning approaches.
Stay where you are, anchor your boat down, which is really important for the high winds, and get as low to the base of the boat as you can.
People did not heed that advice during a monsoon storm last year on Lake Pleasant, leading to chaotic congestion, sunken boats, and water rescues. Holderness says the time to prepare is before a storm ever happens. You can do this by checking the weather forecast and having multiple ways to receive weather alerts like a mobile device and a NOAA weather radio.
Just having some sort of plan that if disaster does strike, that you know how to communicate with the people that you're with if you get separated.
Also, pay attention to billboards that are posted when potentially hazardous weather is on the way, like this one at Lake Pleasant. Ideally, you do not want to get stuck out on the water in the first place, so you can follow the old saying, when thunder roars, head indoors. So when is it safe to go back outside after the storm? You want to wait at least 30 minutes the last time you see lightning or the last time you hear thunder.
Can we expect big changes from last year's monsoon, or will it be more of the same? We've got our predictions in our 2025 First Alert Monsoon Forecast. Lightning is impressive but dangerous. A single lightning bolt has enough electricity to power 50 homes for a day.
You're watching an Arizona's Family Special, First Alert Weather, Monsoon 2025. You're watching an Arizona's Family Special, First Alert Weather, Monsoon 2025.
Time now for another monsoon fast fact. Most dust storms in Arizona form between Tucson and Phoenix, the so-called dust storm alley. The haboob, seen around the world, blanketed Metro Phoenix on July 5th, 2011.
We know storms can pop up quick during the monsoon, so make sure to download our free First Alert Weather app. You can track the storms directly from your cell phone. There's a live interactive radar for you to see when the storms are heading your way, and our First Alert Weather team will send you push alerts during severe storms. We know when dust storms roll through, our air quality deteriorates. We have live air quality monitors that you can keep an eye on to keep your family safe. And we love getting to see what the weather looks like in your neighborhood. Submit your weather photos directly to our AZ Family Newsroom so we can show them live on air. Download our free First Alert Weather app from the Apple Store or Google Play.
6 of the past 10 monsoons at Sky Harbor brought us below average rainfall, with the past 2 years some of the driest. This year, however, the latest monsoon forecast from the Climate Prediction Center is cautiously optimistic about Arizona getting more rain than average. Another bit of good news, while we can't escape our summer heat, we don't think we'll be anywhere near the hottest summer on record as we had last year.
On behalf of your First Alert Weather team, thanks for watching Monsoon 2025.